This story is titled, I Stopped Supporting My Brother's Family After He Said, You're a Burden to Us. Christmas was always my favorite time of year. This time, I had planned ahead. No last-minute shopping, no frantic rushes to grab gifts. By the first week of December, I had already bought presents for my parents, my brother Jacob, his wife Kelly, and their kids. I even picked up a few extra gifts just in case there were unexpected guests. Something about this year felt different, like it was going to be a good one. But the moment I stepped onto my parents' front porch, holding two big bags of carefully wrapped gifts, I knew something was off. Mom answered the door, her face unreadable. Then, before I could step inside, she uttered words I never expected to hear. We don't want you here this year. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke. I let out a nervous chuckle, waiting for her to break into laughter. But before she could say anything else, Jacob's voice cut through the air from inside the house. This is no place for losers. You're really starting to wear on all of us. I just stood there, my breath caught in my throat. My father was in the background, avoiding my gaze, looking at anything but me. Mom seemed uneasy too, but she didn't take it back. And Jacob? He stood tall, arms crossed, his usual smug arrogance written all over his face. A rush of emotions hit me, shock, anger, confusion, but I swallowed them down. I wouldn't let them see me break. Fine, I said with a stiff nod, turning back to my car. But as I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the gifts piled in the passenger seat, my mind raced. No place for losers? Tired of me? Where was this coming from? For years, I had done nothing but help Jacob and his family. I paid for his kids' summer camps, covered their school supplies, even helped with their mortgage when things got tight. And now suddenly, I wasn't welcome. I needed answers. So instead of driving away, I got out and marched back to the house. They hadn't even shut the door. My parents were still whispering, and Jacob was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone as if nothing had happened. What the hell is going on? I demanded, stepping inside. Why am I not welcome? What did I do? Jacob smirked, barely looking up from his phone. You really don't get it, do you? You've been slacking off lately. The kids have barely gotten anything from you this year. I blinked. What are you talking about? I spent hundreds on gifts for them, more than anyone else. Jacob finally set his phone down, meeting my gaze with a bored expression. Last year, you did more. This year? It's like you don't even care. It's embarrassing for us, honestly. I turned to my parents, expecting them to step in to tell Jacob he was being ridiculous. But instead, my mom gave me an awkward smile. But you just bought a new car, she pointed out. You found money for that. I stared at her, dumbfounded. The car is on credit, I said slowly. And even if it wasn't, what does that have to do with anything? How does buying a car make me responsible for Jacob's kids? They're not mine. Jacob leaned back against the couch, stretching like this whole conversation was boring him. You make the most money, he said simply. Families help each other. You've always done that. I glanced at his wife, Kelly, who sat quietly in the corner. Her face was flushed, her eyes downcast, her hands twisting in her lap. She wasn't saying a word, but she looked ashamed. So let me get this straight, I said, exhaling sharply. Because I was generous in the past, I'm now obligated to keep doing it forever? And if I don't, I'm a loser? Jacob shrugged. If the shoe fits. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I turned to my parents, my voice calm but firm. You know what? You're right. I don't belong here. Then I turned to Jacob. Enjoy your Christmas and good luck with those presents, because this loser is done. I walked out without another word. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tightly my fingers ached. My mind replayed the scene over and over, Mom's hesitant expression, Dad's refusal to meet my eyes, and Jacob's smug, entitled attitude. The weight of it all pressed down on me. I'd spent years bending over backward for them. And for what? To be discarded the second they decided I wasn't useful anymore? When I finally pulled into my driveway, my hands were shaking with rage. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. No more anger. No more second chances. I stepped inside, dropped the bags of gifts onto the kitchen table, and stared at them. Just hours ago, I had been excited about Christmas, about seeing my family, exchanging presents, sharing a meal. Now, these gifts were just reminders of how little I actually mattered to them. I pulled out my phone, opened a group chat with my parents and Jacob, and typed a message. Me, I understand now. My value to you has never been about who I am, only what I can provide. That ends today. Don't call, don't text. I'm done. I hit send. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed. Jacob. I let it ring, then Mom, then Dad. I ignored them all. A text from Mom popped up. Honey, don't be like this. It's Christmas. Jacob followed with, Stop being dramatic. You're embarrassing yourself. I scoffed. I was embarrassing myself? Jacob, a grown man who depended on me like I was his personal ATM, had the audacity to call me embarrassing? Without hesitation, I blocked them all. Then I grabbed the bags of gifts, loaded them into my car, and drove across town to a local children's shelter. If my so-called family didn't appreciate my generosity, there were plenty of kids who would. When I arrived, the shelter coordinator, a kind woman in her 50s, greeted me with a warm smile. "Are you donating these?" she asked, eyeing the bags. "Yeah," I said, my voice rough. "They were meant for my family, but turns out they don't deserve them." She gave me a knowing look but didn't pry. "Well, you're making a lot of kids happy tonight." For the first time that day, something inside me eased. As I drove home, I realized something. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Update. The fallout. A week passed. I ignored every attempt my family made to contact me. They left voicemails, sent emails, even had relatives reach out on their behalf. I didn't respond. Then, just before New Year's, my dad showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. He looked older, more tired than I had ever seen him. His shoulders sagged like he was carrying a weight too heavy for him. "Can we talk?" he asked, rubbing the back of his neck. I leaned against the doorframe. "That depends. Are you here to guilt trip me or actually listen?" He sighed. "Your mother is upset. She didn't want things to turn out like this." I let out a dry laugh. "She stood there and let Jacob call me a loser. She let you stay silent. And now you're worried about how she feels?" Dad hesitated. "You have to understand. Jacob has always needed more help. He struggles with things." I scoffed. "He struggles? Dad, I busted my ass for everything I have. I didn't ask for handouts. I didn't expect special treatment. But Jacob, he's been mooching off everyone for years. And you let him. Hell, you encourage it." He had no response to that. "Let me guess," I continued. "You came here to convince me to make amends. To be the bigger person because it's family, right?" Dad exhaled sharply. "I just don't want this to break the family apart." I folded my arms. Newsflash. The family was broken long before I walked away. I was just too blind to see it. He looked down at the ground, silent. "I'm not changing my mind," I said firmly. "I'm done. If you want a relationship with me, fine, but it won't be on Jacob's terms. And I'm not giving him another damn cent." For a long moment, Dad said nothing. Then finally, he nodded. "I understand," he murmured. But I could tell he didn't like it. That was fine. I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself, and I wasn't backing down. New Year's came and went in silence. No calls, no texts. It was the most peaceful holiday I had in years. Then, about a week into January, I got an email from Jacob. Subject: "You're being selfish." Jacob: "So this is it? You're really cutting off your family over some dumb Christmas drama? You've been acting like a spoiled brat, and Mom and Dad don't deserve this. You know they rely on you, right? Dad's getting older, and Mom's stressed enough without your little tantrum. But sure, keep pretending you're some kind of victim." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting in disgust. They rely on me? What about me? For years, I had been their safety net. Every time Jacob messed up, every time my parents were in a bind, I was there. I helped with bills, gave loans I never saw repaid, covered for Jacob's mistakes. And now that I had stopped, now I was selfish? I closed the email without responding. A few days later, Kelly, Jacob's wife, reached out. Unlike Jacob, she didn't send a nasty email. She called. I let it go to voicemail at first, but she kept trying. On the fourth call, I finally picked up. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Hey." She sounded hesitant, almost embarrassed. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to talk." I didn't say anything, so she continued. "Look, I know Jacob can be difficult, and I know what happened at Christmas wasn't fair to you, but things have been really hard lately. He's under a lot of pressure." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Kelly, I don't know what you expect me to do with that information. Jacob's always under pressure. He's always struggling, and yet somehow he still finds the energy to treat me like crap." She sighed. "I get it. I do. But he's my husband, and I have to stand by him. I don't want things to get worse between all of you." There it was, the real reason she called. "You mean you don't want to lose the financial support?" I said bluntly. Kelly was silent for a long moment. "That's not," she started, but I cut her off. "Be honest, Kelly. You've been married to Jacob for years. You know what he's like. You know he expects people to clean up his messes. And now that I've stopped, you're scared of what happens next. Right?" Another pause. Then finally she whispered, "Yeah." I sighed, my frustration shifting into something closer to pity. I get that this is hard for you, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for Jacob. If you want to keep bailing him out, that's your choice, but I'm done. I understand, she said quietly. And for the first time, I think she really did. Update, the inevitable begging. By mid-February, I had settled into my new reality, one where I no longer answered Jacob's calls, no longer got dragged into my family's financial disasters, no longer felt obligated to fix things. Then one day my phone rang. It was Mom. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Oh, sweetheart, she exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. You finally picked up. I've been so worried about you. I leaned against my counter. What do you need, Mom? There was a pause. Then, hesitantly, well, things have been tough lately. Your brother's struggling, and your dad and I, well, we've had some unexpected expenses. We were just wondering if... I laughed. Actually laughed. Let me stop you right there, I said, shaking my head. I know exactly where this is going. And the answer is no. But, no, Mom. You only reached out because you need money. Not because you miss me. Not because you regret what happened. Just because you need something from me, like always. She sputtered. That's not fair. We do miss you. You just thought I'd be dumb enough to open my wallet again, I interrupted. Well, I'm not. You made your choice at Christmas, and I made mine. Don't call me again unless it's for something that doesn't involve money. I hung up before she could respond. And this time I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt done. March rolled around, and for the first time in years, my life felt peaceful. No sudden phone calls demanding money, no guilt trips, no obligations that weren't my own. I had finally broken free. Then one evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Unknown, hey, it's Dad. Please call me when you can. I stared at the message for a long moment. I hadn't blocked him like I had Mom and Jacob, but we hadn't spoken since he showed up at my door after Christmas. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, one I wasn't proud of, felt a twinge of concern. So I called. He picked up on the first ring. Son, thank God. What's going on? I asked warily. It's Jacob. I sighed, already regretting making the call. What did he do now? He lost his job, Dad admitted. And Kelly, well, she left him. That made me pause. Kelly left? Yeah, Dad said, his voice heavy. She took the kids and moved in with her sister. She said she couldn't do it anymore, that she was tired of being married to someone who refuses to grow up. I exhaled slowly. I can't say I'm surprised. I know, Dad murmured. But Jacob, he's not taking it well. He's in a bad place. He's drinking a lot, staying out all night. Your mom's beside herself. I pinched the bridge of my nose. And what do you expect me to do about it? Dad hesitated. I thought maybe if you reached out, tried to talk some sense into him. I cut him off with a bitter laugh. Oh, so now I'm good enough to be part of the family again? Now that Jacob's life is falling apart, suddenly I'm useful? It's not like that, son. It's exactly like that, I snapped. You all made it clear where I stood, and I meant it when I said I was done. Jacob is not my responsibility. If he wants to drink himself into a hole, that's his choice. I won't be the one to pull him out. Dad let out a heavy sigh. I just don't want to lose both my sons. That one stung. I hesitated, swallowing down the complicated emotions his words stirred up. Then maybe you should have thought about that before siding with Jacob every single time, I said quietly. I know, Dad admitted. I know we failed you, and I won't pretend I can fix that overnight, but I wanted to try. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. I appreciate that, Dad, I finally said, but I'm not fixing Jacob, not this time. Dad didn't argue. He just sighed again and muttered, I understand. For once, I actually believed him. Update, a glimpse of closure. A few weeks passed without incident. Then one afternoon, I got an unexpected call from Kelly. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the best of me. Hey, I said cautiously. Hey, she echoed. I wanted to say thank you. That threw me off. For what? For standing your ground. For showing me that I didn't have to keep enabling Jacob. She let out a humorless chuckle. I guess it took you walking away for me to realize I needed to do the same. I leaned back in my chair, taking that in. Are you and the kids okay? We will be, she said, her voice steadier than I expected. It's hard, but honestly, it's a relief. I should have left years ago. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I get that. There was a brief silence before she spoke again. For what it's worth, I think Jacob's finally starting to realize he screwed up. I arched a brow. You really think so? I don't know, she admitted. But he hit rock bottom, and sometimes that's what it takes for people to change. I wasn't holding my breath. Anyway, she said, clearing her throat, I won't take up more of your time. Just take care of yourself, okay? You too, Kelly, I said sincerely. As I hung up, I realized something. For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel angry anymore. Spring rolled in, and with it came a sense of finality. It had been months since I cut ties with my family, and life had never been quieter. No frantic calls, no last-minute financial rescues, no guilt weighing me down. For the first time, my money was mine, my time was mine, my peace was mine. But then, one last unexpected message came through. It was from Jacob. Jacob, I get it now, I screwed up. I pushed too hard and I took you for granted. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it. I'm sorry. I stared at the text for a long time. If he had sent this 6 months ago, maybe even 3 months ago, I might have jumped at the chance to fix things. But now, I felt nothing. Not anger, not resentment, just nothing. I had already grieved the loss of my family. I had already made peace with it. This apology, whether sincere or just another manipulation, didn't change anything. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something else. I went out and lived my life. Final update. A life without them. Summer came. I took a vacation, a real one for the first time in years. No one called me in the middle of it asking for money. No one made me feel guilty for spending on myself instead of them. I made new friends. I strengthened old friendships. I built something for myself instead of being the foundation for everyone else. And you know what? It felt amazing. I still think about them sometimes. About my parents. About Jacob. I wonder if they'll ever truly change. I wonder if they'll ever realize that I wasn't the problem. They were. But I don't dwell on it, because I've finally learned something. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about effort. It's about love that isn't conditional on what you can provide. And if they couldn't give me that, then I didn't need them. I was finally free. And I wasn't looking back.